Good evening, folks. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and we are talking about the best of James Bond, 007, Secret Agent, created by Ian Fleming, of course, and we're going to be counting down the top 10 James Bond films. Oh, yes. Definitely love the James Bond franchise. I've been a fan ever since I was a little kid, ever since I can remember. And then I saw my first James Bond film back in 1985 in theaters. And that was such a mind-blowing experience. I just fell in love with James Bond and the franchise. And I love the sense of adventure, that espionage, that, the whole secret agent thing. I just love it, and the action. The wild set pieces and the suave, debonair nature of Agent 007. So, first we're going to start with some honorable mentions, ones that just barely missed the cut. And some of these were very hard to not include in the top 10, but there's only room for 10 on the countdown, so... First would be From Russia with Love. Yeah, just barely missed the cut. Definitely a classic Sean Connery Bond. And he does a fantastic job in this. Great film. You had Robert Shaw in there. Octopussy. Definitely a solid one. And this was the year that the Bonds squared off. Sean Connery Bonds squared off against Roger Moore's James Bond. And next honorable mention would be that film, Never Say Never Again, which is a remake of Thunderball. And honestly, I actually prefer Never Say Never Again. I thought it was a great return for Sean Connery as James Bond. I really enjoyed that film, and I prefer it to Thunderball. And of course it wasn't an official Bond because it wasn't produced by Albert Broccoli and all that, but I consider it an official because you have Sean Connery as James Bond, and it's based on the Ian Fleming novel. So, and you had Diamonds All Forever. This was Sean Connery returning as Bond after George Lazenby had his one shot with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. They somehow lured him back once more for James Bond. Skyfall, starring the current James Bond, Daniel Craig. Alright guys, let's get down to it. The top 10 James Bond films of all time. So the first one, you might be shocked that it's on this list, and I'm going with The Living Daylights in at number 10, starring Timothy Dalton as James Bond. I did see this film in theaters, and at first I was a little bit leery because I had been so used to Roger Moore as James Bond. I didn't know what to expect with Timothy Dalton. But I thought he did a great job, and I really enjoyed The Living Daylights. Very underrated. Next up, I am going with Roger Moore, James Bond, and that is The Man with the Golden Gun. This is definitely a classic 007 film in my eyes, with a classic Bond villain in Scaramanga, played by the great Christopher Lee. And you also had Britt Eklund in the film, who worked with Christopher Lee in The Wicker Man. Next up is going to be another classic Sean Connery Bond, absolutely a classic, introducing the Spectre organization, and of course Ernst Stavro Blofeld, as played by, of course, Donald Pleasance in this film, and what an iconic villain. Next up, I am going with my favorite of the Daniel Craig James Bond films, easily to me, that is Casino Royale, which I believe was the original first novel of James Bond. And with Daniel Craig's introduction, he showed that he's a badass. He's a very serious, hard-nosed James Bond. Yeah, he's no nonsense. Next up, A View to a Kill. Yes, that great song by Duran Duran there. Dance into the fire. I love this film. I know a lot of people rank this low on their list, think it's one of the worst ones, which boggles my mind because I love this movie. I think it's an absolute blast. There's just so much going on. This was Roger Moore's farewell performance as James Bond. And you had so much going on. You had Grace Jones in there as Mayday, great character. You had Christopher Walken as Max Zorin, great villain. And you had so many great set pieces. The opening there with the ski chase. You had Bond chasing Mayday up the Eiffel Tower. You had the big finale with the blimp, on top of the bridge there. That was insane. Love View to a Kill. Next would be the one and only performance of George Lazenby as James Bond. And in my opinion, this is the most underrated James Bond film. I think it's a great movie. And you had the lovely, the late Diana Rigg in there, who's definitely one of the best Bond girls in the franchise. So rest in peace, Diana Rigg. And I enjoyed George Lazenby as Bond. I'm kind of conflicted with it because at one hand, I would have liked to see a couple more with him in it, but then we wouldn't have had Roger Moore, who is my personal favorite James Bond. So, but at any rate, you have this one kick-ass Bond movie, and I thought George Lazenby was very good as Bond. Next up, definitely a classic, Live and Let Die, another classic theme song, of course, by Paul McCartney. I love this. This is definitely a different kind of setting for a James Bond film, dealing with voodoo stuff in New Orleans, and really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, Yaphet Kotto in there, really good villain as Kananga. You had the lovely Jane Seymour as Solitaire, probably my favorite Bond girl, just absolutely gorgeous. You had some great action set pieces, and this was the debut of Roger Moore as James Bond, and he was fantastic in this. Next up, we're going to have the first James Bond film, Dr. No, with the debut of Sean Connery, the late Sean Connery as James Bond, who unfortunately just passed away. This is an absolutely fantastic introduction to the character. I mean, that great scene when he's at the casino playing a high stakes poker, and then the girl is trying to talk to him, and he's like, "Bond, James Bond." He lights the cigarette. He just looks so freaking cool, I think this is a classic villain too in Dr. No. Of course, the Austin Powers film, I think a lot of that material comes from Dr. No, dealing with the Dr. No character. I think it's a classic movie, absolutely. And of course you had the beautiful, the lovely Ursula Andress in there. What a great job, what a great Bond girl. And next comes my favorite Sean Connery Bond film, and that is Goldfinger. I mean, this movie is just perfect. Goldfinger, I think, is such a great villain, one of the best, and I like his premise. His little backstory is so cool, and why he's doing what he's doing. Sean Connery is just his absolute best as Bond here, just the very definition of 007. Classic movie, and you had the classic henchman, Odd Job there, just a blast. And in at number one, might be a bit of a shocker for you guys, but yeah, it's my favorite, and I feel it's the best Bond movie, and that is The Spy Who Loved Me. Yes. Starring Roger Moore as James Bond. An absolute classic to me. You had a couple awesome Bond girls in this film, and I think Roger Moore is just at his best here. He's definitely a little bit more serious, and I love the Jaws character. You know, that battle he has with Jaws on the train is just epic. Just an amazing film. You had Carolyn Monroe in there, who I love. I'm a big fan of hers from the Hammer films and Star Crash and Maniac and all that stuff. Just classic James Bond in every way. I love the action. I love the story. Amazing film. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 James Bond films in the franchise. Definitely feel free to give your own top 10 in the comments below, or if you want to make a video response, I would love to see your picks for the top 10 James Bond films. Absolutely love this franchise. Rest in peace to Sean Connery. Rest in peace, Roger Moore. And I love this franchise, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, for the top 10 James Bond films. Thank you.